Hi everyone, thanks for joining me again. You're watching In Deep on the Delta. This is the weekly fishing report for the week of September 1st. And before we get into the report, I got my buddy Richard with me. And some of you may know Richard from Pandemic Fishing. He's got a YouTube channel, and if you're not watching that, you got to check out Pandemic Fisherman, a local guy, mostly Delta stuff, right?
Right.
All Delta stuff. So Richard's here today due to an unfortunate situation. He's generally running around this place in a boat, but he has had some mechanical problems and he has been bank bound for a couple months. Now, a little background on Richard. He has been one of the guys that sends me weekly reports darn near every week, and usually they're pretty good reports. I noticed about a month or two ago he's got a lot of bank in the background and he says, yeah man, I blew a trolling motor out and I've been fishing off the bank. And he's not just fishing, he's catching fish, and he's catching good fish. So I talked to Richard, and he agreed to come on and spill some of the beans, and we're going to talk a little bit about bank fishing really quick. So Richard, let's get into it. And obviously you're getting in your car, throwing in a few rods, you're coming down, you've got a few spots that you like to go to, you're pulling your car up and you're walking the bank.
That is
and
correct.
You're catching fish.
That is it.
So let's talk about, number one, are you moving your car all around, or once you get in your car, do you pretty much stay in that same area walking around, or are you moving the car around?
The car usually stays where it is. I don't go too far away, but I will travel a little ways away from the car.
So you're not staying in one spot?
I'm not staying in one spot, no.
Okay, so tell me how you move up and down the bank, and the secret of covering enough bank, covering it efficiently without covering it, too much. So are you casting out to the middle? You walking up and down the bank? What's your progression here?
Well, with my style, most of my casts are parallel to the bank.
Real close.
Real close. 2 to 3, 4 feet at the most. That's what I'll do. And I'll go left and I'll go right. I'll throw a couple out to the middle, and then I will measure to where that cast goes. Most likely, if I'm coming up the current, that's where I will walk to, and I will start over from that.
And do you like fishing up current or down current?
I like fishing up current.
So you're always walking into the current?
That is correct.
And then you're kind of using a domino effect with your casting?
That is right.
And are you looking for a lot of weeds? Are you looking for clear bank? When you're on the bank, what are you looking for? I imagine that you're looking for the same thing when you're in the boat, but you're bound by the bank, so is there anything different you look for?
Right, I'm looking for clear water. I'm looking for clear areas of water. Steve has talked about that trough between the bank and any vegetation. I'm looking for, if there's a trough or if there isn't any vegetation, that's what I'm looking for, some deep water against those rocks, and I'm throwing as close to parallel to that bank as I can and retrieving that. Okay,
and so you got your pace down, you're moving up and down the bank, you're covering the bank efficiently. You got any suggestions about baits? What baits do you like to use out bank fishing?
My go-to, I have a couple. I have the El Chapo and the River to Sea whopper poppers. It's the 110, the 75, or the 90. It all depends on how aggressive they are. Those are my go-tos. I love the top water bite, and which is why I'm looking for that clear water.
And you're using that pretty much throughout the day?
Yeah.
You're not even worried about, and I know you're on the bank, you're not worming, you're not chatterbaiting, you're not trying to do 50 million things. You stick to top water.
That is correct. Yeah. When I'm bank fishing, I'm looking for those fish that are tucked up against against those rocks.
And that brings up something, a light bulb came on in my head. You're fishing top waters, and you're not just sending me pictures of 1 and 2 pound fish. You're getting some really nice fish off the bank, and I'm thinking, well, maybe that's the key. You are kind of bound to fishing top waters, and you're probably sticking with them more when you're bank fishing than what you would do if you're on your boat.
Absolutely. So you don't get discouraged if you don't have a boat or you can't get out on the water with a buddy. There are some great ways to catch some of these fish right off the bank.
So Richard, thanks so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me, Steve. I really appreciate it.
And for you guys that aren't watching Pandemic Fishing, you got to check it out. What do you think is getting about the time we start throwing some baits out here?
Yeah, top water action.
All right, we're gonna go out fishing, and then we'll get into the report a little bit. Okay, let's get into the report. We'll start with the river conditions. We can go through this real quick because there's not a lot that's changed. Water temperatures in the central delta are hovering around 80 degrees, and we have about 5 feet of visibility. Now, the weatherman is predicting that we're going to have some hot weather, like 105, 107 degree days. So midday water temperatures could creep up a little bit, and that's just, summertime conditions. And we're probably going to be looking at these same conditions for probably another month. When we start getting the fall weather temperatures that are dropping and the water temperatures start to drop, we can see some changes in fishing activity. But for now, we're going to be in that summertime period, and everything is going to probably be revolving around tides and lunar phases. Now, with that, you probably noticed from the pictures that I showed at the beginning of the report this week, there was a lot of big fish caught last week. And if you remember last week's report, we talked about the no moon phase coming up with some higher tidal coefficients. Well, that kicked those big fish into gear, and there was a lot of 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9 pound fish that came out of the delta. And that was all due or related with tides and moon phase. With that being said, hopefully next Tuesday I am going to do a video on moon phases and tides. I know I've been getting a lot of requests to do that, and I'm going to try to I tried to put everything that you need to know to predict your daily fishing patterns, and even looking into the weeks and months ahead in that video. So I think that will be a very important video for a lot of you guys that have been wondering about how we're putting the tides and the tidal coefficients and the moon phases all together. So that'll be out next Tuesday. Okay, so bigger fish last week. Everyone didn't get big fish, but that's just the guys that didn't get the big fish. I know you're out there grinding. The only thing that I could say is keep grinding, and you put your time in on the delta, you will be rewarded with one of these delta tanks. It doesn't happen for everybody every day, but you just have to put in your time, and you have to fish big fish techniques to really put the odds in your favor. We'll go over some of the techniques that have been catching the bigger fish here in just a minute. So we had bigger fish come in. The second change that I saw last week is I think I predicted that the striper fishing was over for the year. All of a sudden they show up again. I got a lot of reports from guys getting stripers in their bycatch. I have one of my weekly contributors and a friend of mine, Fishing King. He's out on the delta a lot, and he's kind of a 50-50 guy, largemouth striper, but he really likes his stripers. Fishing for largemouth, he always spends a little bit of time fishing for stripers, and he's been pretty consistent with getting fish, and the fish that he's catching are decent fish. A lot of fish right around that double-digit class. I think he went out one day, and I think he got 6 or 8 fish in a couple hours, up to about 10 pounds, which is pretty darn good for this time of year. The only thing that I could say, maybe there's a trend that we are getting more and more fish in the delta that become residents and don't go out to the ocean, or possibly there's more fish in the system this year because there's such an abundance of bait. For whatever reason, we haven't had that that big just decrease and nothing through August, late summer doldrums of striper fishing. With that being said, I also talked to Zach from Outdoor Sportsman this week, and he confirmed that a lot of the customers from Outdoor Sportsman, they're getting stripers fishing off the bank, and they're just out chugging along. So with that, we'll keep an eye on that. I think it's going to be a heck of a year for stripers when it comes to that water temperature dropping this fall and the fish move from the bay into the river system again. So we'll keep an eye on that. Who else did I talk to this week? I talked to Rob from the Bass Hole. Rob also commented that he has seen an increase in the bigger fish. Especially a lot of the guys that Rob talks to are tournament anglers, and they are really focused in on punching and frogging. We've talked about that for the last 2 or 3 weeks, probably for the last maybe 2 months, and that's just one of the constants here on the delta. If you're looking for bigger fish, Stay with that punch rod, stay with the frog rod. You may not get as many bites as if you're drop shotting or throwing a crankbait, but you're going to get a better class of fish. And I think, you know, when we talk about the people who are getting big fish and the people that are getting lots of bites and catching lots of fish to wade through maybe some 2 and 3 pound fish, that's the difference. It's the bait, not so much the areas that they're fishing, but it's the baits that they're using. So think about that if you are still in that group that is saying, I'm catching a lot of fish, but I've got to wade through so many fish just to get a decent keeper, or maybe every now and then a 3 pounder. Think about changing your techniques, not necessarily your location. Okay, what else can I say? I have been out a lot, and my fishing has been either feast or famine. I have concentrated my times to most of my time, early morning or in the evening. Now, when we have a no moon, like we've had this last week, the early morning bite has been much better than the evening bite. When we have a full moon, I like to fish the evening and kind of, you know, not worry about getting up at 3 in the morning. But because we have had the no moon phase, I've been fishing early, and that fishing has paid off for me. I'm throwing big swim baits. I am throwing bluegill patterns, small swim bait bluegill patterns that are subsurface to about 3 or 4 feet. I've been doing a lot of punching once the sun comes up. And when I get in those places that are real sloppy, I will throw frogs. And those, to me, are 4 big fish baits, and I've been staying with those baits. Now, I'm not getting a lot of bites. As a matter of fact, I've been out a couple evenings, and I told you I don't really like to fish the evenings, and the evening tides haven't coincided with the sun going down. The evenings have been tough for me. I've had one day where I got blanked. I didn't catch a fish one night. I had another night where I think I caught 6 fish, and I was lucky in about a 5-minute period. 2 of those fish were about 3 pounds. The other fish that I caught were very small. Now, the mornings, they've been pretty good for me, pretty productive. I start off with wake baits and the subsurface bluegill patterns, and I'm able to get 2 or 3 chances at big fish every morning. If I get 3 chances at big fish and I can catch 2 of them over 4 pounds, that makes a good day for me, and that's kind of what I've been doing. I'll fish from just before daylight to a half an hour after the sun comes up. I've been getting 1 or 2 nice fish up to about a little over 5 pounds. As soon as the sun comes up, I'll start punching, and I have gotten better fish this week punching than I have in the last couple weeks. So punching and wake baits early in the morning, and then punching and frogging throughout the day will get you bigger fish. The guys that are catching lots of fish, they are throwing drop shot, they're throwing wacky rig worms, and they're throwing crankbaits. And several of them say, we are keeping everything very close to cover. So I can say one thing: no matter what you're doing, the fish are relating to cover, and cover is either surface vegetation back where you would normally punch or frog, or they are in the trough and they're way down in the elodea or the submerged vegetation. They're holding strong in there. Docks, edges, lips, points. I've been doing well on points that have some water movement with my wake baits in the morning. You know, they're very close to cover, so you don't want to be fishing open water. If you're fishing open water, you're going to get a lot of fry garters. And if you're interested in just getting bit, every week there's been at least 2 or 3 people saying they're catching fish on not jerk baits, flukes. And a lot of people are overlooking flukes. So just put on a weightless fluke or a drop shot with a KVD Dream Shot on it in baby bass colors, and you're going to get bit. But again, you're going to get back to that game of catching a whole lot of fish and every now and then getting a 2 or 3 pound fish. All you guys that have been sending me reports, I've been getting a ton of them. Thanks so much. I read every one of them. I try to get most of your pictures up if I can. If they're a good picture and they're in focus, I try to put those on the report. But I want to thank you guys for sending me the reports. With that, this next week, I think it's going to start to flatten out. We should start looking about the 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th. That's when we have the new moon phase come up. We're going to get better tides. So if you're planning a trip, if you can't get out this weekend, don't worry about it, but start looking at that right around the 10th of September. We're going to have some great tides. So if you haven't subscribed, make sure you subscribe, and do me a favor, hit the like button if you like the reports, and until next week, we'll see you guys on the water.